Welcome back, addicts, to another movie review. I'm Josh, and today we're going to be talking about the latest installment of the MCU films, the Man and the Wasp. Now, this was a film I really did enjoy, and just getting right into it, I'm going to talk about the things I thought were really good with this film, some of my favorite scenes, and then also my minor issue. And then at the very end, we will talk about some spoilers to the movie. I will put my recommendation / rating before that so that anybody that hasn't seen the movie can watch up to that point. And I will give a spoiler warning when we get to there. But starting right off with the good, I thought the action, especially the scaling of this action, was really good throughout the whole movie. I would say it was at least on par with the first movie. I liked it better than the first movie. It did have a lot of cool scenes, and since Scott can now switch between Ant-Man and Giant Man, you know, the different power sets, it leaves it open with a lot of room, and they do play with that. I do want to point out that a really good aspect of this film, but one that people might criticize on, is how fun / comedy filled this movie is. I know a lot of people do criticize the MCU movies for having too much comedy at times, but honestly, I knew going in that Ant-Man, he's a quippy character. I expected there to be a lot of comedy in it, so it didn't throw me off, you know, by any means. But also, you got to keep in mind, this is the first MCU movie that's following the events of Infinity War, and so they really wanted, you know, an uplifting, fun summer movie to kind of get your spirits up a little bit, I guess you could say, after seeing what happened in Infinity War. So that would be my main thing for you guys, is just keep in mind that's what it's supposed to be. Now, the big thing I think that helped with this movie in terms of just my enjoyment of it was the pacing of the story. It's just got a really good, I'm just doing boom, boom, boom. Like, they're like very early on, the very opening of the movie, we have a flashback scene that basically tells you the whole premise of the movie, which is to, you know, get Janet back from the quantum realm. And it just lays it out simple as that, and then you can know we're going right into it. As well as the story is constantly moving, and both literally and figure of speech, because they move so much. Like, they go to so many different locations, even if they're not that far in a sense. But it was really great aspect of it. Getting on to some of my favorite parts of the movie. I would say not my favorite, probably my second favorite, was the school scene. It's in the middle part of the movie, and without going into too much detail, basically they have to go retrieve an item that Cassie has in her possession unknowingly. So she took it to school, and they have to sneak in quietly because Scott is supposed to still be under house arrest and Hope is being hunted by the FBI. So it's not an action scene by any means, but it's just a really funny, played out scene that I really enjoyed. And especially with their charisma, they have a really good back and forth between that scene. Now, the second favorite part of the movie was the chase scene, which is basically the whole third act of the film. And up until this point, there's a good amount of action, but it left me like, okay, are we going to see much? Is the final battle going to be much? Because I know up until the third act, you're like, well, you know, they showed off that chase scene a little bit in the trailers, so I was expecting that, but I was wondering, like, oh, is it not going to be that long? But it came in, and it was a hefty amount. I was really pleased with the third act and that whole chase scene. The MCU does really good with their chase scenes, and even in superhero movies in general, like, you know, you got the one from The Winter Soldier, you got the one that was in Civil War, you got the one that was in Deadpool, not an MCU movie, but still a great one. They do really good with those, and it's really interesting to see their own characteristics and takes on each of those types of scenes. Now, getting into my minor gripe, and it really is minor, because I feel like once you get to the very end, and especially into the end credit scene, it's completely justified. But I will highlight it anyway, just for people, so so they don't get the wrong idea when they're going into this. This is a villain. Like, the antagonists and villains are something that I would describe as kind of flat. I mean, they're not supposed to be over-the-top villains. They're not, they're just kind of meh, you know? Like, they're not ones that you're like, oh, they have a big purpose, they're going to create a lot of damage. It's just, they're there to create conflict with the hero, nothing more, nothing less. There's no grander scheme of things. Which is fine. I think, especially with Walton Goggins' character, he plays as a, I guess you could say mid or higher tier criminal. He's not really a villain. But it was fine because I like how they spread little realistic, I guess you could say, criminals and villains in there without them being a huge threat. So I really did like that dynamic, even though it didn't add much to the story, except for one minor plot point. But and as for the main villain, it was kind of the same thing. Like, her powers are really cool, and the way that she can fight and how they can counteract their abilities is really an interesting aspect, and it's really fun to watch, especially seeing how they... I'm really curious for any behind-the-scenes stuff on how they film some of that. But, like I said, in terms of her character, not much that's interesting. It's just kind of like, makes sense, but nothing that really grips you. Getting on to my recommendation / rating, it's just a fun movie. It's a good summer movie. If you guys are looking for a good time, just where you can turn off your brain, go to the theater, and just watch something that you're going to enjoy, this is the movie for you. It's, like I said, I can't repeat it enough. It's just a fun movie. The pacing for this helped me a lot in my rating because, you know, there's some times where it could be a good movie, but it feels slow at times, or you're just sitting there like, ugh. But this movie is a 2-hour movie, and I didn't once feel like it even reached like an hour and a half because of just how good the pacing is. Like, there's always something going on, or there's something that you're like, huh, that was funny, or like, ooh, that's really cool. And it just was beat after beat, and it really helped with my enjoyment of the film, which is why I'm going to give it a solid 7.5. It was really good. As far as other MCU movies, it's not by any means my favorite. It's not, I don't even think, on my top 10, but it's just a really good Marvel movie, and I'm curious to see how they integrate the things that happened in this movie into the overall universe, the cinematic universe. Which, speaking of which, I am going to be talking about spoilers for this movie, specifically towards the ending of the film and the in-credit scenes. So this is your spoiler warning right here. If you haven't seen anything or you don't want to get spoiled, click off now. So I'm going to get into it. The first thing I want to talk about was the villain. So the one thing... well, let me explain the end credit scene first, for anybody that didn't watch the movie but is watching this part anyway. At the very end, we get to see Scott. He's in the quantum realm, while Hope, Janet, and Hank are on the other side of a smaller portal, directing him on where to go and also talking to him over the radio. And they specifically mention that he is there to get healing elements for their new ghost friend, which we get a hint that Ghost is going to be an ally of some sorts. Whether this means she's going to be just a side character in the Ant-Man franchise, or if she's going to be important later on to the whole MCU, it's not. I think it's too early to tell. As not knowing much about her comic counterpart, I don't have a basis to really judge it on. But if anything, I would say, maybe she has something to do with expanding their roster after they lose some characters in the next Avengers movie, or maybe they're just going to have something to help Ant-Man while he's going through the events of Avengers 4. Now, that gets on to my second part of talking, which was the dusting. There was several people that weren't feeling good by the end of this credit scene, which... we get Hank, Hope, and Janet. Basically, everybody else that was on the other side get killed by Thanos. So when we leave off, Scott is alone and left in the quantum realm. And For a movie that's supposed to be, lighthearted, like feel good after the events of Avengers War, I feel like, you kind of left it at a part where it's like, well, it kind of erases that because you just undid everything in the main goal for this movie. But I was fine with it because they have to do it to set up the next movie. But I feel like what this means is the quantum realm has to be a part of some type of element for Avengers 4. It's got to play some plot role. Now, to the extent of that, don't know. There's a lot of theories out there. I've heard some where, they think that Doctor Strange's astral self is in the quantum realm, or that's where it lies, and he can communicate with Ant-Man, or that the Soul Stone has a connection to the quantum realm. I've heard several ones. I don't know necessarily if I believe in any of those. Primarily because I feel like it might be a situation with when we had with Infinity War about the Soul Stone's whereabouts. Like, there was speculations that it was in Wakanda or it was in another world that we had seen in other movies, but it turned out not to be. And I feel like it might be that instance. There's a lot of good theories that are coming up, but I don't know if any of them are actually going to land because I feel like they could just throw us a curveball. Could either, who knows, maybe they'll say it's connected to something using time travel. But that's just kind of my 2 cents on it. I do think that either they're setting this up to be a major plot point, which if that's the case, I'm curious to see if Ghost is going to have any part in this, or if they're just going to save it for the next Ant-Man movie. But anyway, that's all I'm going to talk about because I don't have much more to say in speculation-wise. But this was my Ant-Man and the Wasp review. I hope you guys enjoy the movie and go check it out if you guys haven't already seen it. And I'll just see you guys next time. Later, addicts.